Hi, everybody. I am going to remove my mask. Those of us who are, this might take a second, sorry about the extra noise that comes along with removing a mask while wearing a microphone. Those of us who are here in person are distanced apart, so I want to go ahead and name that for everybody. Some of us are choosing to remove our mask. I'll be removing mine while I'm teaching, etc. And we're just glad that you're here today joining us, whether you're in person, whether you're joining us online. This is a really meaningful day for so many reasons, and to so many of us for different reasons. And before we get into the details of that, I'm Marcy Stagner. I'm going to be leading the practice. I'll be doing our introduction today. Ruthie Orion is right here. Ruthie Orion Lichterman, thank you. I've known Ruthie since for a very long time, so it's Ruthie Lichterman now. Ruthie is going to be demonstrating many of the poses that we're going to be doing today on a chair. So if you're watching from home or if you're here in person and a chair is most accessible to you to be able to participate in a yoga practice, Ruthie is going to be demoing the practice via chair so that you have options and are able to participate. Jenna Kaufman is right here. Jenna is going to be demoing the practice straight through, all poses included, and Jenna is also going to be offering us a yoga nidra and shavasana at the end, which is going to be like I call it the lick the bowl at the end of the yoga practice, just the really good stuff. And I am going to be doing the practice and teaching the practice, the vinyasa, and I also want to tell you I have a shoulder injury that I've been nursing, so I will be giving modifications for those with shoulder injuries. So sit up nice and tall, find a comfortable seat. We're going to get in the zone. Whatever that looks like for you, it might look different than your neighbor's seat. Probably does. If you need to sit yourself up on top of some pillows if you're at home to make this easier on your lower back or your hips or your knees, that's a great option. And just start by taking a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Just coming into the space, a deep breath in, and a deep breath out. Release your shoulders away from your ears. Last night during Kol Nidre services, it's by far my most favorite service of the entire year, and I was lucky enough to be here in person. And Rabbi Greenstein was talking about the sustainability of the Jewish people, and that it's no longer based on the nostalgia of our grandparents, although you still have people like me who make a mean gefilte fish. But it's based on our existence, right? Purely on our existence. And if it is based on our existence alone, then our practice, our Jewish practice, our practice in Judaism, our practice in yoga, our practice in our world, in our life, has to be relevant, which means it has to change, right? No longer can we rely on traditions that might not make sense anymore for where we are in our daily lives. Going to work, getting older, taking care of children. My yoga practice, certainly at 38, does not look like it did when I was 25, and that's okay. And we have to be connected to our Judaism, to our yoga practice, to our meditation, to ourselves, right? That's like a big S, self, in a way that is truly relevant for us, which is why so many of you are choosing to connect through yoga at Temple, right? Whether it's in person or online, it makes sense to you. It feels relevant to you. It means something to you. We're having to reimagine our practice. Like I said before, my yoga practice does not look like it did when I was 25. And my Jewish practice does not look like it did 10 years ago, right? 10 years ago, I didn't have kids. Now I have 2 of them. And we have a Jewish household, and our traditions are morphing and changing and becoming relevant to us, just like your Jewish practices are, and just like maybe your yoga practices. And just like Rabbi Greenstein said last night, the question this Yom Kippur is not, what is your how, right? Not what is your means to an end, how do I get there? It's not that, it's why, right? What is your why? Sit up tall and close your eyes. Deepen your breath, both your inhales and your exhales. Start to stack your shoulders over your hips and your ears over your shoulders so that your spine sits in one long column. And tether yourself back to your breath when your mind starts to wander. Why did you choose to step on your mat today? Why yoga? Asking why steadies us. It gives us the anchor we so badly need. When we keep coming back to our why, we're connecting with our purpose. We're connecting with our gifts and even our liabilities. And those things, our gifts and our liabilities, those things are what make us human. So fold your hands together at the center of your heart and begin to connect with your why, your purpose. And maybe your purpose is a person, right? Maybe you're practicing for somebody who needs it. When we sang the Misha Barach last night, maybe you had somebody in mind, maybe it was yourself, maybe it's an illness that can be seen or one that cannot be seen. Maybe your purpose is developing strength, reimagining your own pliability, your flexibility. Whatever that is, bring your purpose, your intention, your why to the front of your mind. As you connect with your why, you're exploring the intricate layers of your humanity and spirit. Come back to your breath if your mind has started to wander. Today, in honor of your breath, in honor of your intention, and in honor of your purpose, you can bow to your heart. Acknowledging the goodness inside, acknowledging the liabilities inside, acknowledging your humanity. Release your hands, start to flutter your eyes open. We're going to start off seated. Keep your eyes just as soft as they are right now. Bring the soles of your feet together. If this is not comfortable, again, you can sit up on a chair, you can sit on a block or a blanket or a pillow. You can also stay cross-legged if that's easier or more comfortable for you. Hi. What I want you to do, we're going to do a side stretch. So bring your, I'm really bad at mirroring. Bring your right fingertips onto your mat to the side of your body. Inhale, reach your left arm up and over, and you can start to bend your left elbow, right? Maybe it reaches the floor, maybe it doesn't. It's not the point, right? It's not the how do we get there, it's the why we're doing it, right? Come back to your why. What brought you to your mat? Start to roll your shoulders open so that your right shoulder begins to stack on top of your left. And if it feels okay on your neck, begin to look up underneath your right shoulder. Big inhale up. And we're going to do the other side. Plant your left fingertips down. Inhale, reach your left arm up. Now, if you have a shoulder injury, you can always put your hand behind your head. Again, roll your rib cage open. The right side of your rib cage starts to rotate back. The left side starts to rotate forward and up. Shoulders stack. Look up underneath your right arm if that's available. And if that doesn't feel good, right, then don't do it. Inhale, come back up to center. And extend your legs straight out in front of you. Again, you can stay seated. You can stay with your hips lifted if you'd like. If this isn't comfortable on your lower back, hips, knees, anything. Inhale, reach up. Now release your shoulders away from your ears. Oh, good. That was a big difference. I don't know if y'all felt it. I definitely saw that. Exhale, fold forward. Now your fingertips might land at your thighs, at your knees, at your calves. If you can grab the outsides of your feet, do that. Don't force it. If you can take your peace fingers around your big toes and draw your heart forward, do that. Again, it's not how, it's why. And the why in this pose is lengthening the backs of your legs, calves and hamstrings, lengthening the lower back. And the why is also about opening your heart. So if you find yourself really rounding through your upper back, extend your heart forward faster than the crown of your head. Soften your eyes and breathe. Inhale, come back up to center, release your hands. We're gonna do a seated twist. So plant your left foot, keep your right leg extended. I'm gonna give you a couple of variations here. Option number one for a modification is to wrap your right arm around the front of your knee. Your left fingertips plant behind you. You're gonna root down into your hips to rise up through the crown of your head. That's good, that's gonna lengthen your spine. And then as you exhale, you're gonna shift your gaze over your left shoulder, if that feels okay. Keep your right toes active, spread your toes. Yeah, everything participates. Now, if you wanna go a little bit deeper, you can take your right elbow to the outside of your left knee and twist deeper. Moving with your breath, every inhale, get longer. Every exhale, twist deeper. Gently unwind, come back to center and switch legs. Your right knee bends now. Plant your right fingertips back behind you. This is gonna help you keep your spine long, right? You don't have to, you can do it without it, but if you do it without it, then your heart starts to slump, right? We're not as open. So we're gonna do everything that we can to keep our hearts open. How's that for a yoga metaphor? So plant your right fingertips behind you, lift your heart, lift your gaze. And you can either wrap your left arm around that right knee or bring your left elbow to the outside of your knee to twist a little bit deeper. Use your breath. Every inhale, get taller. Every exhale, twist deeper. Unwind and come back to center. Bring the soles of your feet together, your knees apart. Again, it's okay to stay seated with your hips lifted on top of something. That's a great modification. And this is very intentional, right? This is what this holiday is all about, is living with intention. Yeah, so we're gonna be intentional about how we do this pose. Seemingly easy pose, right? The outer edges of your feet glue together. The inner edges peel apart, kind of like they're opening like a book, and your toes are spread. And I know it sounds like a nitpicky thing, but it changes the whole practice. Everybody root to rise, so root down, get grounded in your hips, rise up through the crown of your head at the same time. Start to fold forward, right? Fold at your hip creases, so you're not really rounding. Folding at your hip creases first. Now, if it feels good, you can press your knees down with your elbows. You can always leave your elbows out front, whatever feels good to you right now, and breathe. Feel the collective breath of the others in the room, and even the others, if you're practicing at home, the others who are practicing with you from their homes. We feed off of this collective energy, right? That's why it's easier, more enjoyable to come to a yoga class than it is to practice at home, right? That's why it's more enjoyable to come and be with community at temple. And thank goodness we have the option of watching services at home and making everything more accessible. But being with community, roll your shoulders back, heart forward. Being with community is what feeds our soul. Inhale, come up to center. Come onto your hands and knees. So You can curl your toes under behind you if you want to, or not. It doesn't really matter either way. We're going to do a few rounds of cat and cow. Spread your fingers wide here. Take up some space on your mat. On your inhale, you're going to arch your back, look up to the sky. And then exhale, contract, scoop your tailbone, look back toward your belly button. Connect your movement with your breath here, inhaling and arching, looking up. And as you exhale, contract and round. Get as much movement through your spine as you can here. And just take a moment to really turn inward and do whatever feels good. So you can get your hips involved. You can roll out your head and neck if that feels good. Roll out your wrists. Pay attention and get curious. Right? That's what asking why does. It makes us curious. It allows us to stay curious. Explore your practice. On your next inhale, come to a neutral spine. Hug your belly button in towards your spine. Extend your right leg back at hip height. Really flex your foot, spread your toes, press out through your heel. If you don't engage, it's going to be heavier to lift, right? Reach out through your left arm. Breathe. And release. We'll do the other side. Extend your left leg back this time, and it can be helpful for balance to kickstand your right foot if you find yourself a little bit wobbly. And if you're super wobbly, you can always leave your left toes on the ground. Breathe, extend long through the crown of your head, and release. We're going to push back into a child's pose just for a moment. Big toes together, knees apart. Press your hips back toward your heels. Melt your heart down toward your mat along with your forehead. Take some long, deep breaths into your back body. In yoga, the thought is that your front body is representative of yourself. It's what you see when you look in the mirror. It's what you see it's what others see when they talk to you. It's what you see in other people when you talk to them. It's representative of the self. And in yoga, the back body represents the universal. It represents that which we can't always see, that which is always there. Breathe into that space, that supportive spirit. It's always inside you, even when you forget. One more deep breath. And exhale it out. Now begin to curl your toes under, lift your hips, press back into downward facing dog. If you have a shoulder injury, you can stay on your hands and knees. Again, Jenna, if you're watching from home, Jenna is demoing the full practice. Ruthie is demoing the chair options. And I'm demoing the shoulder injury options. Take a few minutes in your down dog to soften your knees one at a time if that feels good. Shake your head yes and no. Press your heart back toward your toes. On your next inhale, step your right foot forward between your hands. Keep your back knee lifted if that's available for you. If it's not, you can drop it to the ground. Your back heel is lifted. Reach up overhead for crescent lunge. Now press your back thigh away from the ground. The tendency is to want to drop it, right? It feels heavy. Press it up. With intention, press that back thigh up. Draw your outer right hip back. So you're squaring your hips off to the front of your mat. Shift your gaze upward and soften your shoulders. From here, open up to warrior two. Your back heel spins to the ground. Arms are at a T. Shift your gaze out over your right fingertips. Soften your shoulders away from your ears once again. Keep your front knee bent. We're going to do reverse warrior. Flip your right palm up toward the sky. Reach back. Now this is a side stretch. It's not a back bend. Deepen the bend in your front knee. And we're going to come into extended side angle. I'm going to give you a couple of options. You can bring your right forearm to your right thigh, or you can bring your right fingertips to the ground or a block outside of your front foot. Reach your left arm overhead. If this doesn't feel good on your shoulder, keep your hand on your hip. Start to rotate your torso upward toward the sky. Shift your gaze upward toward the sky over your left shoulder if that feels okay. If it doesn't feel okay, look at the floor. Inhale back up to warrior two. Now straighten your front knee. Reach down with your right hand for triangle pose, Triconasana. Up with your left hand. Again, a modification here would be to bring your right hand to your shin or your thigh, just not your knee joint. You never want to push into that. Look up toward your left hand. Scoop your right tailbone underneath you and stack your shoulders to open your heart toward the sky. Exhale, touch your mat. We're going to move through a vinyasa. Step back to inhale to high plank. You can lower to your knees or lower all the way down to chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, back downward facing dog. And again, shoulder injuries, stay on hands and knees. Breathe. Reconnect with your breath and come back to your purpose. Come back to your why, what brought you to your mat today. And with the same courage it takes to get out of bed every morning, I want you to step to the top of your mat with your left foot. Reach up, crescent lunge. Reaffirm the bend in your left knee. Soften your shoulders away from your ears and shift your gaze upward toward the sky. A hopeful gaze as we move forward into the new year. Open it up to warrior two. Arms go to a T. Your right foot spins to the ground, and it's kind of like your left foot, if you were to draw a line from your left heel, it would go to the middle of your back arch. Flip your left palm upward, reverse warrior. Keep the bend in your front knee. The tendency is to want to straighten it. Don't do that. Keep it bent. We're going to come into extended side angle, Triconasana, either your left forearm to your thigh or to the ground or a block if you have one. Right arm over your head. Shift your gaze upward. Again, start to rotate your rib cage up toward the sky. Inhale back up to warrior two. Straighten your front knee. I heard a big sigh of relief there. Bring your left hand down, your right arm up. Triconasana, triangle pose. Lengthen through your legs. From the core of your hips, lengthen your legs back outward into the ground. And as you do that, you'll notice how you can open your heart more fully toward the sky. As you reimagine your pose to reflect where you are in the moment, whether you have an injury or have just had a baby, or whether you are tired or have a lot of energy. How is that reflected in your pose right now? Touch your mat. Step back. Downward dog. And you can move through a vinyasa if you'd like, or you can stay in downward dog. If you're coming through a vinyasa, inhale to plank. Exhale, chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Reconnect with your purpose and your why. Bend your knees. Look forward and hop or step to the top of your mat. Come into a forward fold. Now your knees can be as bent or straight as you'd like here, as long as you're not hyperextending them, right? Soften through the back of your neck and grab onto opposite elbows for Ragdoll. This is a very introspective pose on a very introspective day. Again, soften your knees if they're hyperextended. Come back to your Y. And allow the weight from your arms to bring more length into your spine. The weight from your head, more length into your neck as you pour yourself out over your legs. Release your elbows. Inhale, look up halfway. You can come up onto your fingertips on your mat or on your shins. Again, knees can be bent here. Exhale, forward fold. We're going to move with our breath for a minute. Inhale, look up halfway. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, look up, expanding outward, right out into the world, not staying insular. And exhale, recharge by turning back inward, forward fold. Press into your feet. Inhale, reach up overhead. Come to standing, Tadasana, mountain pose. Exhale, draw your hands together at the center of your heart. Close your eyes. Come back to your intention. Press your intention between your palms, giving it some potency. Release your hands. Flip your palms forward. That tiny action makes a big difference, right? It opens your heart. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, look up halfway. Exhale, chaturanga, or directly back to downward dog. You can jump, you can walk, you can crawl, however you get there. Inhale, upward facing dog, and exhale, downward facing dog. Breathe. Inhale your right leg high into the air for down dog split. Spread your toes. Exhale, step it through to a lunge. Lower to your back knee, reach up overhead. Now sink into your front knee. The Y here, not the how, the Y is getting a really nice stretch in the front of your left hip flexor. Draw your outer right hip crease back. Shift your gaze upward, reach up with your fingertips, and then soften your skin on top of it all. Soften your eyes and your jaw. Take the rigidity out of your practice. Exhale, touch your mat. Now heel toe your right foot to the outside of your mat. And you can stay here and you can let your right knee go to the side. If this is enough of a stretch on your hip, you can stay here. If you want to go a little further, you can come down onto your forearms. Back toes can stay curled or not, it doesn't really matter. As you let your right knee widen out to the right, really root down through the inner arch of your right foot so your ankle doesn't roll. You really want to keep the integrity of your ankle there by rooting down through the inner arch of your right foot, your big toe mound, all that good stuff. Breathe into the space of your right hip. Our bodies hold memories. Our bodies hold stress, trauma. We tighten up when we are fearful. So as we reimagine our new year and how we are existing in a way that is relevant to our lives, I want you to allow all of the stuff that you've been holding on to that's not serving you, just to let it go, whether that's with your breath, whether that's with your hip opening, whether that's with the softening of your edges. Start to walk your hands up. Heel toe your right foot back to where it was, sort of back to the center of your mat, where it was for your lunge. And you're going to launch onto your right foot for standing splits. Now, your left leg lifts. And it can just be, you can keep it on the ground, right? If you want to lift it however high, makes sense for you. However high feels authentic for you. Not too far. Challenging yourself the appropriate amount. Soften through the back of your neck. And we're going to come into a half moon pose. Again, you can drop your left toes to the ground for balance if you'd like, or you can keep it lifted to hip height. Your right fingertips go a few inches in front of your toes. You can keep your left hand on your hip or reach it up to the sky. Half moon pose. Arda Chandrasana. We're going to go back to standing splits. So your left leg stays lifted, both hands down. Rotate your hips square to the floor again. Soften through the back of your neck. Press your heart toward your right shin. And now step your left leg back into a lunge. Lower to your back knee. Reach up overhead for your low lunge. Exhale, touch your mat. We're going to move through a vinyasa. You can always go to child's pose or downward dog. If you're doing the vinyasa, inhale, step back to plank. Exhale, lower chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog. And exhale, downward facing dog. Breathe. Reconnect. Inhale, step your left foot forward between your hands. Drop to your back knee and reach up overhead, low lunge. If this hurts your shoulder, you can bring your hands to your hip. Exhale, touch your mat. Heel toe your left foot to the left side of your mat, so you're coming into a wide-legged lunge here. If this feels like enough on your hips, stay here. If you want to go a little further, come onto your elbows. Again, as you widen your left knee out to the left, root down through the inner arch of your left foot to hold the integrity of that ankle. We're pliable, we're flexible, we're moving, right? We're not stagnant. We're not relying on traditions that say we have to do our pose a certain way if that doesn't make sense for us. We're not relying on traditions that don't make sense to us in our Judaism either, right? We're reimagining it so it's relevant to us so that we can continue to exist. Walk your hands up. Walk your left foot to the center of your mat. We're going to come into the standing splits that we did on the other side. So launch onto your left foot. Either keep your right toes on the ground or start to lift your leg. Press your heart toward your left shin. Really keep your right toes engaged, participating in your practice. Half moon. Left fingertips in front of your left toes. Your right hand can be on your hip or to the sky. And back to your standing splits. Both hands down, right leg stays lifted. Exhale, step back to a lunge, lower to your back knee. Inhale, reach up overhead. Exhale, touch your mat. Move through a vinyasa or directly back to child's pose or down dog. If you're doing your vinyasa, inhale, step back to plank. Exhale, lower chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog. And exhale, downward facing dog. Lower to your knees for child's pose, everybody. Big toes together, knees apart. You can extend your arms out in front of you or wrap them behind you, whatever feels better. Take a few deep breaths into your back body, that which represents the universal and what we can't always see. Priya Parker I'm a big fan of Priya Parker. If any of you are familiar with her, she wrote a book that I just love. It's called The Art of Gathering. And when I was preparing for today's yoga class, I was thinking about Priya Parker and her book, The Art of Gathering, and how through this pandemic, we've totally had to reimagine the way that we gather. We can be in person, we can be on Zoom. Do we hug? Do we not hug? Masked, unmasked? An elbow tap, shaking hands, what are we doing, right? And we have the opportunity to define meaningful spaces where we can gather spiritually and safely. We have to engage first by asking why. Start to walk your hands up, come to a seat, and roll onto your back. Bring the soles of your feet together, your knees apart. Deep breath into your belly. Now hug your knees into your chest. Give yourself a good squeeze. You can really round here if you want. You can bring your forehead to touch your knees if that feels good. And if it doesn't feel good, you know what my answer is, right? Don't do it. Drop your knees to the right. Shift your gaze to the left. These twists are where we really get to rinse out, right? This is like the Yom Kippur of poses. Anything that we're holding on to that we don't need, we get to let go of, whether it's physically or spiritually or just with intention. Inhale your knees up to center, drop them to the left, shift your gaze to the right. And you can imagine a washcloth that is soaked with water, just dripping with water, too full, too much, excess, right? Whatever that is. And when you twist it and wring it out, all of the excess water goes down the drain. And what's left is a washcloth that is wet, but not overly wet, right? It's not full of excess. So imagine, with intention, that much like a washcloth of excess, you are rinsing out, getting rid of anything you don't need here to create space for what you do. Inhale your knees back up to center. Bring the soles of your feet together, your knees apart on your back. Bring your right hand to your heart and your left hand to your belly. As you feel your heartbeat underneath your hand, and you feel the rise and fall of your belly with your breath, with your other. This is where we connect our intentions with our actions. This is where we connect our why, our purpose, with how exactly we are going to redefine our practice.
And Marcy just opened us up, and I'm going to lead us in now, marinating in all that goodness that she just gave to us. So you'll just stay in your chair if you're there, placing your arms on top of your thighs. And if you're laying on the ground, go ahead and get comfortable, spreading your legs out, your arms about 5 inches, palms facing upwards. And we'll take some communal breaths, breathing in through your nose, sighing out through your mouth. One more. In and sighing out. Beautiful. And bringing your awareness first to your toes and your feet. And just noticing how this part of your body feels. And we're going to slowly work our way all the way up to the top of your head. But first starting in your feet and ankles, and feeling into your calves and your shins, and just softening the muscles and bones, even deeply into the marrows, the very centers of your bones. Feeling your knees in the fronts and the backs. Feeling your thighs. And seeing if you can completely soften both legs. Feeling as if they are completely separate from the rest of your body. Moving into your abdomen and feeling the rise and fall of your belly. Watching the rhythm of your breath. And feeling up into your chest and your rib cage. Feeling into your lower back, your middle back, and your upper back. And feeling your whole spine as if it's soft, like a thread of silk. And your whole torso is soft and slack. Feeling into your fingertips and your palms, feeling the energy moving around. Your wrists and your forearms and your upper arms. Widening your shoulder blades. Feeling the softness in your chest. Soften your throat and neck, maybe even releasing your tongue from the roof of your mouth, letting your jaw fall slack. Softening your cheeks and your nose. Softening your forehead and feeling as it widens. As it softens. Softening your hair and your scalp. Feeling the space around you even soften. To your left and to your right. In front of and behind you. Above you and beneath you. And in this space, you have nowhere else to be, nothing else to do, but to be present right here. And if you notice your mind wandering, welcoming it back lovingly. Welcoming your mind back to the body, back to the breath. And noticing the rhythm of your breath. The pause between breaths. And from this space, I want to invite you to think of an image or a memory of a person or a place where you feel safe and loved. Just call to mind whatever feels right in this moment for you. And as you imagine this memory, allowing the details of it to come into full color. What does it feel like to be with this person or in this place? What does it smell like? What does it look like? What do they sound like? And just watching yourself and what you notice arises. Do you notice a smile curling on your mouth? Maybe a warmth or a tingling sensation originating somewhere in the body. Allowing your mind to orient toward what feels good in this moment. And we'll take some breaths here to seal this practice today. Breathing in, deepening your breath, coming back to the present. Bring some movement into your body, wiggling your fingers and your feet, stretching your arms maybe overhead or around. You can even give yourself a hug and just feel that touch. And when you're ready to, if you're laying